Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Welcome back to The Wilder Ride, our listeners' lounge, a chance for us to sit down and talk with somebody special, usually during their season. I'm Alan Sanders, your host.
I am your co-host, Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, editing Alan here. I wanted to apologize for the lack of quality of what you're about to hear over the next hour and a half. Walt and I, when we finally got back together, decided to dive back to the radio station where we first started in seasons 1 and 2 before the flu shut down the world for a couple of years and we were doing everything remotely. Didn't realize that something happened to the board at the studio and an amplifier had gone bad and we had this massive 60-cycle hum in the background. And for some reason, someone installed some software into the back of the system somewhere that was trying to compensate for softness. It wasn't the recording software, and it certainly isn't the mics. There's nobody added a limiter as far as I can tell, but something went a little wonky. I've done the best I can to clean up the audio to make it listenable, but as you can tell by the way this recording sounds that I'm inserting into the episode, we have a better system, and episode 2 is going to sound a whole lot better. So please, your indulgence. Had no idea until after we recorded that there was just a bit of a, well, not the kind of quality audio that I prefer, nor would I normally release had I known that that problem had been there. So thank you for your indulgence, and hey, let's get back to the show. And Walt, we don't have a guest today in our lounge, but we have also been noticeably absent from the lounge.
Yes, we have. In fact, I've gotten a couple of emails and texts this week from friends and fans saying, hey, what the crap happened to you guys?
What's going on?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, Jeff from Radio Labyrinth sent us a message, and that kind of got us talking about, man, we really need to get in the studio and talk and catch up some and get things rolling. And I think both of us have just had our plates full.
Well, let's be honest.
Yes, I have had my plate full.
One of us is really enjoying what it is to be a newlywed with having somebody who you want to hang out with a whole lot more. You would rather be, I get it. You'd rather be with her than me. I totally get it.
Yes, that is true. I will not lie.
I need this to like advance. We need to go forward. We need to get to that point where you're like, I need me time again.
Well, that would be more of her going, okay, I've had enough of your BS.
All right, okay, well, then I need you to like continuously smother her for like the next. No, in all seriousness, it is so good to be recording with you live. We're actually in our studio together. Not even over Zoom.
Yeah, I know. It's really crazy. It's almost weird. I was on your show a few weeks ago. I don't remember why. You were leaving early, so I was filling in for you in the last hour or something. And so we were in the studio together then, but I think that's it.
Yeah,
it's been a long time.
When we closed up shop December of 2021, we assumed and we told everybody we'd be taking our typical month and a half, 2-month hiatus. We usually take all of December because we've got kids, we've got families. The holidays are really important to us. We wanted to be off, and we usually know January's tough getting guests because it's the beginning of the year. It's the dulls of winter. So we usually try to fire up guest interviews around February so they can start going live in March. It's June.
Yes. Here we are.
It's June. On the flip side, I can tell you, there's a part where you go, it sometimes feels, I understand now why people like retirement. When they reach a point where like, I don't have to go to work today.
Right.
I didn't have to set up a recording or find a guest or then edit and then try to publish. It's been kind of nice.
Well, and it's crazy for me to sit down and say, okay, I've got to block this evening or these 2 hours or whatever to record. But you have to do that, and you have to do all the editing and everything else. And a lot of times I'm out, hunting around for guests and things like that. But it's almost like having an extra full-time job that you're not really getting paid for.
Right.
So it can be a little much.
Oh, wait, no disrespect to all of our Patreon fans. Yes, you are helping to pay.
They keep the lights on.
You really are taking care of our hosting fees,
absolutely.
which is why all the old shows are still there. Because if we didn't pay hosting, all the old shows would be going away, and we don't want that.
We don't want that. Yeah, and we just have website and all the other stuff that goes into this. So yeah, I mean we've had just some of the greatest people in the world step up and help out with that, and even stayed with us through our hiatus. So we really appreciate that.
So big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. You can find more, obviously, patreon.com/The Wilder Ride. We'll do all that. If you're just discovering it now, you're just a new member. You can find all of our social media at The Wilder Ride, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The website is thewilderride.com. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to talk about just what we've been doing since the hiatus. We'll try to have it's just going to be you and me. We're just going to chat, have a good time, and maybe bring the audience along. And if they want to, throw us their feedback on social media about anything we talk about today, then they're certainly welcome to. With your new marriage, do you want to do a shout out to the new bride? Put her on the pedestal here for the rest of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was kind of crazy. I was telling Alan at dinner, we started our season with our traditional pizza and beer for dinner.
There are certainly worse ways to get together.
There definitely are. And we have done those. We've done those. But we got married in January and had kind of a crazy time leading up to that. Just we were thinking really more later in the year, spring, summer, and maybe fall. But I got an offer on my house that I couldn't refuse, and she was talking to a real estate agent friend, and he was like, "Oh, we'll get your house sold in 30 days." In 3 days, we had an offer on that was just, again, another can't refuse offer. Then we're like, great, we're both homeless, and now we got to figure something out. So we bought a house, we got married, we have had, we've been on a cruise, which was my first cruise of my lifetime. So then we got back, and my wife, I joke about this all the time, that my wife would go to a garbage convention in Milwaukee if it meant a road trip. She loves to get on the road. She's got one, what do they call it? Wanderlust.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got back from the cruise, and about a week later, she sent me a text, and she was like, "Oh, I just found this great deal on a cruise in September. And, what do you think about that?" I was like, "Oh, no, that sounds good." She's like, "Great, because I already booked it."
Well, folks, that goes our September show. Just going to let you know right now.
We'll do that live from Cape Canaveral as we're
I'm learning this as we're sitting here. We're having dinner. We're talking about, hey, Walt, how about we just do maybe a show a month just to kind of get back in the swing? By the way, September's booked.
I've got 3 more weeks that
December's booked. I'm November's the whole Thanksgiving between the blended families. October, I mean, if I want my one night off, that's going to be the Halloween Spooktacular. Yeah, so
see, that's going to be, there's our October show, and then you can come to my house for Thanksgiving in November.
Yeah, I'll bring my gear. That'll be fun.
That'll be awesome. The family will love it.
Never invited back again on that one.
No, we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. But you've got a lot going on professionally, and
do I?
You're trying to have a lot going on professionally.
I mean, I am very busy. Yes, but
so.
Yeah, not like you.
Yeah,
my busy is like, your busy is like, yeah.
Or my busy's like,
one of us is getting busy, the other one is just busy.
Yeah, right. Trying.
No, I'm always trying.
Yes, I know you're
Don't get me wrong. So. Hey, baby. She's like, no.
Well, can you blame her? I mean, let's be honest.
Well, and I always have to throw like a wrench. I was just going to say, did you want to go out to eat or?
Yeah, try to throw that curveball.
Yeah, never really. I can't recover from that one.
No.
She's like, do you know the number of times I've stood over you in the middle of the night with a pillow thinking, why don't I just do it?
You know what we call that around my house is that he got my pillowed.
My pillowed. You know what's bad? So I'm friends with the sheriff of the county in which we live. I mean, my wife and I, we both are. A lot of our friends we would go out and do things together. And one time, I don't know what I said. I did something typically, 15-year-old brain, just inappropriate and crass.
Sure.
And she said something. She goes, one of these days, I am really going to just kill you in your sleep. The sheriff goes, well, tell you what, we know that this is a long time coming. As long as you let us know when you plan to do it, we'll make sure we put one of our less competent deputies on the scene. was like, what? He's like, yeah, we'll
It's good to have friends.
and then our buddy Brad, the attorney, Brad's like, hey, you know what? I'll represent you. I don't think we'll have any problem. We've got the district attorney. We're really good friends. We're in the same Optimist Club together. We'll just we'll make sure that you're covered. We got you. I'm like, you guys are saying this in front of me. I'm like, well, you won't be around.
Won't be around. You're not a witness.
We're not worried about you. I kid, but all in good fun. But it is weird when that happens, like the spontaneous improv of the sheriff going, oh yeah, we'll just put our least competent investigator. And he goes, I've got your back no matter what. We lose paperwork all the time. I'm like, wow.
Well, on our cruise for our honeymoon, my wife goes, oh, I don't know. We were somewhere between Catalina Island, California, and Ensenada, Mexico on that run. And she goes, if you fell overboard, I wonder how long it would take them to find you. I was like, wait, we've been married like 2 weeks. Where did this come from?
Oh, did I not tell you about that policy?
And I was like, I was wondering why those insurance guys came by.
You did know I had more than one husband, right? Oh. See, these are jokes you tell when you get to our age. See,
that's right.
20-somethings are like, that's horrifying. Oh my God. No, I love my wife. Oh, I love my husband. Oh, I'm like, oh, shut up.
Yeah, no.
No. But the cool thing is, when you get to our age, and we're both now, you're a product of a second marriage. I was already of a second marriage. For me, anyway, and I think it sounds similar to you, my second wife actually was a friend first.
Yeah.
And so
same with us.
There was no, when we decided we're going to start going out, there was no, okay, now I got to put my best foot forward. She'd already seen all of the worst possible outcomes of me. Like there was no putting on airs or pretending to be. No, she already had seen all the warts. It was too late. And I was like, and you still want to go out? Okay.
Right. I mean, that's on her.
I mean, every time she does the pillow thing, I'm like, you knew who I was.
Right.
Don't start acting like this is new. This is who I've been since day one.
Exactly.
And she's like, yeah, but I wasn't married to you then.
Right. So
like, that's not my problem. That's a you problem.
Yeah, exactly. Don't try to drag me into this.
I did this on one of my other rant show. I do a podcast, one of the episodes or one of the shows within a show under a podcast called 60MW in the UK. And I don't think I've ever said it here, so I'll use this opportunity now to say I figured out one of the differences between the way my wife looked at our relationship versus how I looked at our relationship. And for me, because I do a show on Saturdays and I bring in a real estate person once a month, we talk about houses and the housing market.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it got me thinking, I didn't realize until I found my second wife and that we were, and she was my best friend. We were having so much fun together. It was like when I was looking for a house and you'd look at all these different houses and you'd say, this isn't quite right at this house. You go to the next one, it's like, I don't like this kitchen. You go to the next one, I really don't like the roof line. And then all of a sudden you go to that house. Like you find, you're like, I love everything about this house. The door to the house looks fantastic. The color is great. It's got the layout I want. It's got the kitchen I want. I mean, it's got there. I don't want to touch a thing.
Right.
This is it. This is my house. That's what I thought of when I met my wife.
Yeah.
I was like, it's got everything I want. My wife, not like that. My wife walks to a house and says, okay, hate the color. I hate the roof line. I hate the kitchen, but it's got potential.
Right.
And that's what she bought. See, she bought a fixer-upper.
Exactly.
And thought, if I can do this, and this, what an amazing home it's going to be. And I'm like, but I already married an amazing home. She goes, I know you did. I didn't.
Right.
I need to fix her upper.
Yes, I think our wives can relate.
So
it's a good project.
I was like, but you knew. Then you already knew. You saw. You went into the house. You saw that it was dilapidated. You saw that the wallpaper was peeling. You knew what you were getting.
Right.
Yeah, but I knew what I could change. No, I didn't sign up for that.
Right. It's a fixer-upper at best.
So that's in a nutshell, folks. Don't tell me there's not a difference between men and women.
No, there definitely is a difference.
Huge differences. So, but I love my wife. Lest anybody think that my playing on this is it's just the differences between men and women. And the funny thing is, we talk about this all the time. We have a good fun. We have our own show together, the Marriage Fit podcast, and we very much enjoy that. It's been on a little bit of a hiatus too. Funny, about the same length of time as you. Makes me wonder what you and she
Kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. Well, I see that she's bringing home a new pet from her camping trip today. She posted on.
Well, it's not a new pet. It's our dog that we inherited from our youngest daughter.
Oh, no, I meant the rattlesnake.
Oh, that one. Oh, yeah. Hey, you know what, though? I have to give it to my wife. I got to hand her, because we talked about it. I have a psych degree in my background, and one day she came up from the garage and looked like she had met Freddy Krueger down there. She was just petrified, hardly could talk. Turns out there was a king snake that had crawled into our garage.
Oh, gosh.
And I had for several, well, let's say years, some coax cable just curled up on the floor. And so we just were used to seeing it. So she just assumed that's what it was until it moved.
Ugh.
So I had to go down there. I was like, okay, it's not a poisonous snake. It's a king snake. It was about 4.5 feet long. It was a decent size. So I got it, grabbed it, brought it outside. And I said, Suze, you can go through desensitization therapy. And she's like, I'm not going to pay for that. I'm like, no. I said, you can do this on your own. I said, you know how you do this? You start looking at pictures of snakes, maybe not up close, maybe not like the close up where it's like right there, but just pictures of snakes, and just get used to where you feel your heart rate doesn't go off the chain just looking at a picture of a snake. Then look at pictures of snakes a little bit closer. Then start going YouTube, videos of snakes.
Then
I said,
go to an Alice Cooper concert.
But she did. She's gotten to the point where she said when she would start doing her hiking and then got into the backpacking, she did go and a couple of times ran into a snake across the path. And she said, normally I would have been like panicked and gone back. And she said, I just sat there and just said, okay, just stay still, let it move on. She ran into an eastern rattlesnake on the Appalachian Trail, and it was within a few feet of her. And she said, you know what? I just knew it wasn't acting crazy. I wasn't close enough to be within range. And my only worry was I didn't want the dog to come over.
Oh, yeah.
And so she said, but I just let it go on its merry way.
Yep.
And I told her, I was like, I'm so proud of you, because 3 years ago, nope, she would have probably gone into it. She probably had a heart attack.
Yeah, I am. I'm with Indiana Jones on the snake thing.
Why did it have to be them?
Not a fan. And I've had a few run-ins with them over the years, and I am big time not a fan.
Really? Even the non-poisonous?
Yeah, I kind of go with a live and let live on the non-poisonous, but I don't want to hold one or touch one or
see. And I just really love, like, I don't want a pet, but I've been around snakes a bunch when I've gone on field trips with the girls, and I've had corn snakes rolling all over me and rat snakes, and that doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
they're cool. To me, they're actually really cool.
Yeah, I've just run into a few too many poisonous snakes over the years.
Well, of course, I'm not going to play with a copperhead.
Well,
or a cottonmouth.
They may want to play with you.
Well, I don't think. No, the play is not the word. Kill.
They're like, oh, lunch.
Yeah. No. So, yeah, I thought you were talking about our dog, Lila, that she took. We have sort of had a fifth dog drop in our lap in the last year and a half, thanks to our youngest daughter, who got a dog when she was renting a place that allowed for pets, and then decided she wanted to move closer to campus with two friends that didn't allow pets, and suddenly we had a fifth dog.
Awesome.
I was not a huge fan at first. She has rapidly become the best dog in the house.
Oh, that's great.
She is amazing and is a great camping dog, a great hiking dog. She doesn't take off, doesn't run up the trails. We've come down Pine Mountain before in the middle of the night where we're using our little headlamps coming down from watching like a moonrise. And she has been off the leash because it's just been me and Suze, and stays no more than a couple of feet in front of us. If she starts going a little too far, she realizes she'll stop, wait, look over her, making sure that we're close. And then very much that German Shepherd. It's a German Shepherd Husky mix, but she acts like and has the silhouette of a German Shepherd. And that's how she acts, even though she's black and white, which is cool. So she's a black and white German Shepherd.
That's pretty awesome.
So, yeah, but she was the first time taking her on the Appalachian Trail. And Susan said, she wanted to try to get her on the trail and see, could this be my trail dog? Because that would make me feel better, because my wife is very trusting of the Appalachian Trail. And I don't think I've heard of anything happening, but still, I'm the guy. And I'm like, you're going out there, you and just another woman. I get you've got, a knife for camping. So you do have some protection. You do have, for kindling and firewood. And if you have to cut a rope or whatever, you always want a camping knife. But I said, if you had the dog, I'd feel better.
Yeah. And you don't want to have to use your camping knife to defend yourself or whatever. So,
well, I'd rather she never have to defend herself.
Right.
But having the knife, it certainly makes me feel. I told her she should bring her gun, and she's like, I'm not bringing a gun. I'm like, you can. It's allowed. She's like, I just don't want to. I don't want to have that problem. And I'm like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I should put that in the podcast. I don't want people to like, oh, there's a woman on the Appalachian Trail that
doesn't have a gun.
All right. Well, that's not obviously what we came here to talk about, although we are playing catch up.
Yes, we are.
I guess the first thing we can start with is you and I chatted, and I think we have a plan at least for this season. It's going to be limited because we're already halfway through the year.
Yep.
But I think we should be able to figure out how to do at least the plan is a show a month.
Yes.
So we're going to try to get that rolling here starting in the month of July. I mean, obviously this is our first show.
Right.
It's just you and me, but we're going to actually have a guest join us in July. And I think we're going to start with maybe a patriotic movie discussion.
That'll be great. That'll be great. Yeah, and the plan we were talking about with that sounds pretty cool. We should have some lists of favorite movies and songs and whatever else. So it should be a great show.
I'm looking forward to that. We should be able to have that out. I'm hoping based on the timing, it'll be right around the 4th of July.
Yeah, it'd be great. It'd be great. And,
So-
the guest is going to be somebody people know, and they probably don't like him. We don't like him. But
he said yes,
he said yes,
and he works for free.
And those were our two criteria.
Really, that's when it comes down to it. Yes,
And I can't wait till he listens and sends us both a text saying, "Hey."
Well, look, we needed somebody who is the living, breathing IMDb of our age.
That's exactly right.
We see, instead of looking stuff up, I just have to go BK.
Yeah, BK.
What about
what's up with this?
Well, so and so was in this movie, directed by this movie, and you may not know, but you also had this movie director, and then this music guy did the music for this, that did it for this TV show, who was the voiceover for the cartoon. I'm like, dude, I just asked if you knew the director.
All we asked was who the third assistant gaffer was. We didn't need all this.
Well, why weren't you more clear? No, but BK, he's been on several of our episodes. Very fun guy. Do a show with him on Saturdays, BK on the Air, which is all about nostalgic geekiness. So who better to talk about movies than a nostalgic geek?
Yeah, he's perfect. He's perfect. So, and we have fun. We do the spectacular every year, and that is, to me, one of the highlights of the year, really. But it is just a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll be somewhat in that kind of format, and just have a ball with that.
It'll just be free. Well, it's like we've done, where we have a loose format. Normally we kick around and talk about what it's been since the last show, and then we talk about with our guest. In this case, our guest will be a movie expert, and so we'll talk about movies, and then we'll probably end with just a little bit about what's going on, what have we been watching, anything else. And I thought that'd be what we could kind of just jump to today after we get kind of caught up. Is we've probably both been watching lots of stuff since the last time we were together.
We both have. I know one of the ones that you and I talk a lot about is Bosch. And
yes.
the Bosch Legacy series. I was trying to let it build. I was trying to let several episodes sit out there, and then you sent me a text. You were like, "Oh my gosh, the first Bosch Legacy just came," and I was like, "Crap! Now I got to sit down and watch it." And that is still consistently one of the best shows around.
It was so good to get back into those characters, and we knew, for folks who hadn't seen the rest of Bosch, a detective based on the Michael Connelly books, who we've liked Michael Connelly as a writer. I love his books.
Yeah, me too.
We knew that his career was going to change at the end of the last season of Bosch, season 8, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really looking forward to the return of Bosch. We knew it was coming. We knew it was just delayed a little bit while things kind of cleared up from that whole 2-year hiatus that the world went on. And I got to tell you, Bosch Legacy did a much better job in their season than the final season of Bosch. Not that the final season was bad.
Yeah, I agree.
It just felt the final season was a little bit like, quick, we got to put an end cap on it. Nobody's really comfortable working yet. We're having some trouble getting everybody to want to, conform to all the rules. Let's just go ahead and knock out our season and kind of bring it to a close. And they did, and left it open for the next season. But I felt like this season was on the money.
And thinking about it, the last 2 episodes of that season were kind of like the last 30 minutes of Young Frankenstein, where it just felt like, oh my gosh, we got a lot to encapsulate. We got to
wrap
it. And it was a rush. But this season of Bosch Legacy is just fantastic. And
I would highly, highly recommend it. And if you've never watched any of Bosch, do yourself a favor, queue up season 1.
It's great. And talking to people in law enforcement, my dad, for one, is real picky about law enforcement shows that he's watched. And, of course, we've had him as a guest a couple times, former FBI. He loves Bosch. He and his wife watch every episode. So it's definitely one that has the good grittiness of the real job. as a PI, I can tell you that some of the crap that he deals with in this season are things that PIs deal with. And so it's really good. It is very well done.
And what I love about it is there's multiple threads, and sometimes those other threads come in later in the main story. And a lot of times those secondary threads become then the main plot in the next season.
Yes.
So they very well show the evolution of stories, but they're woven in such a way, because a lot of times you watch a show and season 1 ends, they've wrapped up the story, so you come back for season 2 and it's a brand new story, brand new characters sometimes besides the main. Bosch feels like it's an episodic. It continues. Even though it's the next season, it's like, well, we're just kind of picking up where we left off. And I love that about that show.
I do too. And you feel like that you're left hanging in a good way. That and we both said this at dinner, that I kept checking to see if another episode had dropped, and then we realized, wait, it was only 10 episodes, because that end was so good.
Yeah.
And so unexpected.
And I guess it's a good sign for us that it's an open-ended, they didn't resolve some of the things at the end of season 1 here of Bosch Legacy. I'm already waiting for season 2 now.
Yes.
I mean, they've got me. I will rewatch all of season 1 the minute I know season 2 is about to drop, just so that way it can feel like it's one continuous watching.
Yeah, and there's things in it, like you said, that there are some subtle threads that you don't want to miss. So I'm definitely going to do the same thing. And I'm probably going to read another of the Bosch books somewhere between now and then as well. I've read one. I'm about to start the second one.
Anything by Michael Connelly, I have just thoroughly enjoyed reading. I love his storytelling. I love the way he comes at it. Speaking of a Michael Connelly series, did you watch the Lincoln Lawyer series on Netflix?
I haven't. That's probably one of the next things I'll start watching.
Really good.
That's what I've heard.
I binged the first half in one night, the second half the next night. It was that engaging.
Wow.
And it was different. I mean, I know they made the movie with Matthew McConaughey, which wasn't a bad flick based on the same character, but this was closer to the books, and it showed more about the start of the guy that's now called the Lincoln Lawyer. And it was really good, and I'm hoping it means it'll be open for a season 2 based on how season 1 went.
Well, I have heard nothing bad about it. Everybody talks about that show and just raves about it. So, and you know, sometimes you still get, you know, like, oh, well, everybody was wrong. but it doesn't sound like it on that one.
No, I don't know that I would put it on the same level as Bosch. There are some similarities, and you can tell based on it's the same writer and Michael Connelly's executive producer. But what I liked about this is as a crime or as a attorney drama versus a detective or a cop drama, there's a lot of courtroom intrigue, and there's the courtrooms. And I've always loved watching good attorneys battle in court, and you get a lot of that over the course of the season, because the whole premise, I'm not giving anything away, is the guy who is, his nickname is the Lincoln Lawyer, because he likes to drive Lincolns from classic to new ones. Like that's his breed, that's his car. He likes to be in a Lincoln. And so he got the nickname the Lincoln Lawyer. He ends up picking up all the cases from another firm, all dropped in his lap, and no prep. And he's got to try to, so there's all these little small cases he's trying to like either help or figure out or wrap up while he's dealing with the main murder case. So similar to Bosch, there's threads of other stories, and yet there's the main big story that's going throughout the season.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it does end in a way where you're like, you're ending there? Well, okay, we need a season 2 now. We got to. There's more to the story. You didn't wrap up the main thread yet. We kind of wrapped it up, but not entirely.
So much about a show when you're invested enough in the characters and you're invested enough in the story that you really want another season.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also a risk on their part to leave it open-ended, because if they don't get greenlit, I mean, there's always that risk with any streaming service to go, yeah, we didn't get quite the viewership we wanted. So yeah, even though we said we'd like to do a season 2, we're pulling the plug.
Yeah, there was a show on NBC years ago, probably 10 or more years ago, called Life. I don't know if you ever saw it. Ran one season, and I felt like at the end of the season, it was just getting started and NBC pulled the plug. And that has always just bothered me, that was such a great show and they didn't stick with it in spite of great acting and great writing.
Well, I felt that way about Firefly way back.
Yes, that's another great example of that.
That's just... Thankfully, we got a movie, and they were able to kind of tell the end of the story. But you look back and you go, why couldn't we have gotten 4 or 5 seasons? I mean, it's just... There are some shows that are just so well written, but maybe they're just ahead of their time and didn't catch fire fast enough. And I do know Firefly is one of those series that people to this day go back and discover for the first time and fall in love with it.
Oh, I did that probably 3 years ago, and just on it, it was like everybody keeps talking about how great this is. Let me try it, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is a great show."
That was I watched it when it had come out on the 10-pack had came out on DVD, so I bought it. It was on sale at Target because a buddy of mine was like, "You just got to see the show when it comes on for reruns," because at the time there wasn't a streaming service, and so I bought it. And my wife and I were just like, we went right through it, like just ravaged through it. I was like, oh my God, how did we not watch this show when it was on? And
there are, and even with streaming services now, I find myself doing that more and more where I'm like, oh gosh, how did I not watch Dexter when it was on?
Right.
And because I didn't want to pay for HBO probably. But there are a lot of shows like that are just so good and kind of get lost in all the streaming services and everything. But I think Bosch is one that is really a cream of the crop kind of show.
Yeah.
And sounds like the Lincoln Lawyer is too.
Well, again, it comes from the mind of the same guy, Michael Connelly, and he is an executive producer. So that may be what's helping, is he's overseeing the way that the books are being sort of threaded together and repurposed. And so he's keeping an eye on the evolution of the series to try to make sure that it stays faithful to his works.
Right. Well, have you watched Yellowstone at all?
So my wife has. I watched, we had either 1 or 2 episodes that were free, and then it was like to tease you to join Paramount.
Yeah.
So I watched the first 2, really engaged with it. And then obviously we didn't sign up for Paramount. So my wife then later was able to catch it at her brother's house and watched all of it. And then they released, what was it, 1886? Is that the name of the prequel?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so she now is like, oh, we need to get Paramount Plus. I'm like, I'm not going to sign up Paramount Plus streaming just so you can watch, get your brother to give him the code and we can log in as.
Right.
And she's like, well, I can't do that. I'm like, well, you promised to kill me in my sleep with a pillow. You can't ask your brother for the Paramount Plus code?
Well, I get it.
She's like, there are lines.
Yeah, I get it.
She goes, everybody understands why I would.
and really, like, what has Paramount ever done to her?
True. True. So she loved it. She did watch all of Yellowstone.
I've got, I think, 2, maybe an episode and a half left.
It was like 3 seasons, right, of that?
It's season 4. Oh, no, I just finished season 4.
Okay, so she'd watched the first 3 then.
Yeah, and season 4 does not disappoint. It's really good. So,
well, a series I stumbled across while we were on our hiatus was a series called Goliath. Did you ever see that with Billy Bob Thornton?
No. I've seen it pop up as a suggestion, but I have not watched it.
It was well worth the 4. It's only 4 seasons and it's over and done. I don't think they're doing any more. And I watched. It was great because I discovered it after the 4th season had already come and gone, so I could watch them all. But the whole premise, it's another legal show where he used to be a big time corporate lawyer, massive firm, got sick of the rat race in the business and decided to quit, and now operates out of a bar and a 1-bedroom hotel. And he's basically he's Billy Bob Thornton. He smokes and drinks through every episode.
Of course. Yeah.
But the idea of Goliath is he goes up against his old firm in a case, the Goliath of the massive law firm.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that's the first season, is he goes up against his old firm. So then season 2, I think they go up against a Mexican drug cartel. Like, that's the Goliath that he's got to go up against. And then in the 3rd season, it's the agribusiness in California trying to steal water, which, massive. Is once again, every year it's about the little guy fighting the big guy.
Oh, sure.
And then the final season is about the drug company, Drug Pharmaceuticals, and how, it's thinly disguised as the whole pain medicine, getting people hooked on pain meds.
Right.
And so obviously they've got billions of dollars. They've got massive attorneys. They've got all the money and here comes Billy Bob Thornton's character. He's David, I guess, taking on Goliath. But each season, much unlike Bosch, each season is its own season. There's a few things that run through, like his daughter stays with it. The ex-wife shows up every now and then, but I mean, they're very much standalone seasons. If you stopped at one, when you finish, it's because that story's over. So the next season starts a brand new case.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. If you like if Billy Bob Thornton drives you batshit crazy, well then skip it.
No, early on, he did. But I think that after I saw a couple things with him in it, I kind of got who he is and really came to appreciate him. And he takes some fantastic roles. He's very smart about the roles he takes.
Well, this was a tailor-made role for him.
Yeah.
I mean, it just
Interesting.
now. Granted, it's very much like him, the way the character's played, or some of the roles
Yeah.
he's played. But when Billy Bob Thornton, the way he can tell you off sometimes, or he can manipulate the scene, and you feel like it's. I mean, I know they're written, but he does it in a way that makes you feel like he's gotten the upper hand at the last second.
Sure.
It's just always fun to watch.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing about some of those legal type shows is that you can get a really quick switch on those. So,
I'd give that 2 thumbs up. If you're into legal dramas, and they are all, like I said, encapsulated. So if you decide you don't like it and you finish one season, you're not missing. It's not like the story continues into the next. You can just stop if you want.
sure. Well, any good movies you've seen lately?
Well, I saw 2 in the theater recently. I'm not a big movie going to the theater unless it's a big blockbuster style, but let's start with the most recent one. Just got done seeing Top Gun Maverick.
Yes.
Got to give it 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I really did. They were to me. I everybody's talking about how great it is, and that's always good. But there's some of those that when everybody's raving about it, I go in, I'm like, no, I don't like it. But this is the exception to that because to me it had the right amount of nostalgia. It had the right amount of cheese, and then
Well, it didn't have a lot of it. Thankfully,
it didn't have a lot, but it
I was
had
worried about that.
a
Actually,
thicker story than the first one.
Yeah.
And I thought that the way that they handled several of the relationships in it, I really liked his relationship with Iceman. I really liked the way, and I'm trying not to give any spoilers, but I liked the way that they did that relationship. I also liked the way that they had basically played that character through the 30 years since the first movie, and that he wasn't. It wasn't just the same guy from 30 years ago. It was a guy who had lived a life and who had had good and bad happen, had some real trauma, and now is kind of our age. He's
Right.
kind of older. He's kind of towards the end of his career and having to deal with some of that. So, which is not always an easy thing to deal with.
And although there was some parallels that you could say storyline maps with the first movie, I like how the premise of Top Gun, because they go back, I mean, that's the whole point. It's Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
The only reason they're back at Top Gun is it's not to find the best pilot. It's because of this mission where they need the best of the best to see who's even qualified to do this, harrowing mission that most people in the Navy feel like you're not coming back from it.
Right.
And that part intrigued me because it now explains why you're at Top Gun. It explains why you're running through these simulations and these battle sequences, the air-to-air combat, because of the mission that they're going to have to go on. So now it's not just who's going to be the best fighter pilot. It's you're all the best. You've all been there before.
Right.
Now let's go that next step. And to me, that was so fresh. And I still enjoy, and the fact that they filmed in actual jets,
Amazing.
it was incredible.
Amazing. Well, I always love the opening scenes and all those scenes on the aircraft carrier deck.
Mhm.
As a civilian, it's hard to conceptualize of what it has to be like to be on an operating deck. I was lucky enough when I was in about 5th or 6th grade to go to Family Day on the USS Saratoga. My uncle was a fighter pilot. And so we got to go and they did an air show and everything, but you don't get the organized mayhem. But when they have that camera just sitting right in the middle of all those guys running back and forth, getting the jet set and launching, that is a really impressive show. And
they're floating cities, your typical nuclear carriers of today, so much bigger than the World War II carriers. There's about 3,000, about 3,500 people on board.
It's amazing.
What's crazy, thinking about just the sheer size of one typical modern aircraft carrier. I mean, they've got shopping malls on board for the people to go to when they're off. They've got multiple restaurants or mess halls. They've got barbers. They've got beauticians. They've got it's literally floating city block.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because they need to have things to do when they're at 6 months at sea or 12 months at sea or whatever their deployment, plus mechanics, plus repair, plus places to sleep. I mean, it's truly a floating city. They're amazing marvels of technology, these aircraft carriers of today.
Well, I know it's apples to oranges, but when we went on our cruise, I'd never been on one, and it was amazing what they have operating in a ship at sea. And so I can only imagine what it's like on an aircraft carrier.
Cruises are more fun.
I would imagine. I hardly did any push-ups, so I'm sure that, didn't have to run the deck. So
I will say this about Maverick. It was better than the first movie.
I would agree. I thought for several reasons that it was much better. And I'll tell you, those flying scenes just are mind blowing, aren't they?
Just so good. And the sound mixing was great. I mean, now granted, I went to a Dolby Atmos surround theater. It was an extreme theater screen, which is a competitor to IMAX, but basically a massive screen, massive sound.
Yeah, we went to IMAX.
I was in there. I was if I was younger, this would have been the recruitment movie that made me want to join the Navy.
Right. I would imagine that recruiting's going up right now.
I can't imagine why it wouldn't. I mean,
well, and I would definitely say see it in the theater.
Yeah.
This is definitely one to see in the theater because it is a big movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
the other big movie I saw that was in the theater, and I think is one of those you need to see on the big screen. I saw a couple weeks back, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
that is the other one I've seen recently, and that too, man, it is mind blowing. It is really cool.
I liked Doc Strange when it first came, the first one. I thought this was cool to Marvel taking another one of their characters from a different part of their universe and kind of fitting it in. Not your typical kind of hero. I didn't know anything about Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Loved. In fact, that's one of the movies I've gone to probably. There's a handful within the cinematic universe that I'll go back to and rewatch. I've probably seen that one 6 or 7 times already. It's
I've probably
good.
seen it 3 or 4. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I really like that character, and of course, Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, is just one of the best actors working today.
So good.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this: had you seen WandaVision all the way through?
Yeah, I had.
Because to me, I don't know that you would have had to see it, but it made Elizabeth Olsen's character of Scarlet Witch and what she was going through. I'm glad I saw
Me too.
WandaVision because it really made sense for why somebody who had been a hero up to this point was having her own mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody with the powers of Scarlet Witch having some mental issues, that's a dangerous combination.
It is not a good thing. It is not a good thing.
And
that really added a big dynamic to that movie.
it did.
That just so yeah, I would if you unless you're going to run out today and see it on a whim, try to get through WandaVision and then go see it. It's only 6 episodes, right?
9.
9 episodes.
9 episodes.
So it's only 9 hours of your life to invest to get ready to go see Doctor Strange.
Well, I think a handful of them are less. They're like 40, 45 minutes, some of them. So
yeah, some of them are short. Yeah.
I know my daughter came over one night and we binged, I think 5 at once. And it was only like within 2.5 or 3 hours because we just kept watching because she had never seen it before. But I do think it's
an interesting show.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. Definitely worth seeing.
I think I told you this. We did it during season 4 of our show last season. After watching all of WandaVision, I went back and rewatched Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, which is where she and her brother are first brought into the storyline. And it made Age of Ultron so much better watching it after seeing WandaVision.
I need to go back and watch that. That's one that I've seen once and haven't gone back to. So and not for any particular reason. I just haven't.
Yeah, I had only seen it once and I felt a little disappointed. I went to the theater to see the second Avengers movie. I was like, but then after WandaVision, I said, maybe I ought to give it a chance. And I was like, it answered so much. It was like, I needed to know her story more. I needed to understand how she fit in and why they were doing experiments and why her and her brother were part of this Hydra experiment. It made so much more sense. And I ended up watching, as soon as I got done with that, I said, well, I might as well go ahead and watch Avengers Light, which is Captain America Civil War, the third one, because all the Avengers come in at the end, which led me to just go ahead and move on to Infinity War. And then I ended with Endgame. So I just did like a mini marathon with those 4 movies, and they almost work perfectly as 4 movies to watch back to back.
Yeah, they really do. They do. The people who are writing those movies and in charge of that universe are a lot smarter than me.
So I know that whole side conversation came from Doctor Strange. Yeah. The coolest thing about Doctor Strange that I thought was neat about Marvel with the second one is it did tap into the horror genre. There was a little bit more of the, not just creepy. I mean, we're talking zombies. We're talking undead. We're talking some dark, sinister things that are part of the storyline.
Yeah, and I am not, I don't know when I kind of got away from reading comic books, so I'm not as familiar with the storylines on people like Doctor Strange.
Yeah, me neither.
Well, when I walked out of that movie, I was like, what did I just see? It was really an amazing movie, and the horror definitely comes through.
It was definitely a PG-13 flick.
Definitely.
I mean, you've got demons and ghosts, and I mean, just
yeah. There's
and the multiverse.
Yeah, I mean, you have everything, and you've got just watching people personally implode. You've got everything you can possibly ever want. And Doctor Strange already, just if you've seen the first one, you know that there's a lot to keep up with as you're going through a Doctor Strange movie. This is like that on steroids.
And you know what, though? And we brought up Elizabeth Olsen's character of Scarlet Witch. It could have easily been called Scarlet Witch in the Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, she was such a pivotal secondary. I mean, I say secondary. In some ways, she's the reason why everything happens in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she absolutely is. 100%.
So, and once again, a testament to Marvel to take a chance of taking a character who everyone kind of grew to love and then putting her through something to make her into the bad guy. I mean, and that's no spoiler. That's in the trailer. She's like, funny, you break the rules. You're the hero. I break the rules. And I'm the villain.
I'm the villain.
Doesn't seem fair.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the way she does that, the way she delivers that line, she's like, just doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's not happy about this. Yeah, no, I know it's coming out on Disney Plus June 22nd. So by the time this is out, if you haven't seen it on the big screen, now's your chance to see WandaVision ahead of time, because you need to know what she's gone through to understand where her character is during Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, and it's
I mean, they do catch you up in the movie, but it's like a real high level summary.
Right.
Whereas watching WandaVision, you get everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you do. And yeah, I would definitely check out WandaVision first. And it's a very entertaining series.
Now, as far as other movies that I've seen, I think I saw it at the beginning of the year because it came out at the very end of 2021. But I did see on the big screen Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Gosh, I'd kind of forgotten that came out in between. That was awesome too. I loved that.
To me, that was the end game of the Spider-Man series, or franchise, as far as part of that storyline. Because and this is no spoiler at this point. If you haven't seen it, it's your fault. But the fact that they found a way to write a storyline to bring in the other iterations of Spider-Man to explain how, like, wait a minute. And for folks, if you don't know, this is maybe more information than you wanted to know. Marvel at one point in time, as a comic book series, was getting ready to go bankrupt. So they sold properties off to keep the lights on. And one of the properties they sold off was the Spider-Man property to Sony Pictures.
Right.
So here comes the MCU, huge multiverse, huge Marvel Cinematic Universe. Well, we don't have Spider-Man. Sony made 3 Spider-Man movies initially with Tobey Maguire. Then they tried to reboot it with Andrew Garfield. We don't own Spider-Man. We've got this huge, amazing universe we've created on screen. We've reinvigorated Marvel. They had to go license back their own property because they sold all of the movie rights to Sony.
Isn't that crazy?
So to know that, you have to say, okay, well, now if they're making Spider-Man movies, but Sony owns Spider-Man, we had a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, we had an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. How do you reconcile these other Spider-Mans that technically weren't part of the cinematic universe, but they're Marvel, so they should be? That script was spot on, fantastic.
Oh, dead on. Absolutely. And I had actually done a good job before I saw it in the theater of not reading anything, not listening to anything, and just going cold and seeing it. And as you were watching it and things start to unfold and you realize that the multiverses are coming together, that is really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And you start seeing, the villains from Spider-Man past, and you're like, wait, where are these guys coming from? And how did that just happen? And then you realize that the multiverses are colliding and all the bad guys are showing up. It is really great.
Yeah.
It is really great.
That was a real fun movie to see in the theater.
It really was. And I need to watch it again, but that is a really great movie.
All right, let's go rapid fire through some of the other shows we've watched because we're coming up on an hour already.
Good grief.
So I think if we can kind of maybe rapid fire through a few of them, just to kind of thumbs up, thumbs down. I watched 2, and I don't know if you caught them, but on Netflix, I'm into because of you, by the way.
Well, you're welcome, whatever.
But watch serial killer documentaries.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And there's one, I forgot the exact name, but it's like interviews with or
Conversations with a Killer, the John Wayne Gacy tapes. I just pulled that up to talk about.
Conversations with a Killer, where the family had to, I guess, just recently, people that were involved had to approve the release of these tapes. So you heard conversations that had been recorded that hadn't been released before, or maybe only snippets, but not in the big context. That was a well done series.
One of the things I liked that they did is it wasn't just sitting there listening to John Wayne Gacy, that it was, here's the history, here's the stuff that went on, here are the police officers who were there. My dad actually met one of the guys who worked on that investigation and was in his crawl space pulling bodies out, and it was bad. I mean, it was gruesome and horrifying. And somehow, like, this guy was involved in politics, and he was a well-respected member of
He was
society.
like a block captain or something for the Democrat Party. He was there to help rally people, and if you had a problem and you wanted to get in touch with your selectmen or whatever, you go to John Wayne Gacy. And
so this is like anybody's next door neighbor, anybody's friend from Rotary Club. That's who this guy was, and it goes into all the crazy stuff, and then you hear from him and you just realize how sick and demented this guy is.
That's the part I think I don't want to say disturbed, but that's probably a good word, because it didn't keep me up at night. I didn't have like bad dreams or anything.
Yeah.
But just the ability to put on such an air of normalcy during daylight.
Yeah.
And get away with, it wasn't just one or two. It was 30 some people eventually they found
that they know of. I mean, this guy is going to have bodies everywhere.
And then that part of me, and maybe that's because we live in an internet connected age, and it feels like, and I get it, it was the 70s, but it just feels weird that you could have that many people, and maybe it's because it was more urban, there were a lot more people, but that were disappearing left and right, and they just didn't know about it.
Well, honestly, and they touch on this some, and this is,
well, I mean, it opens with the mistake he made with the kid that was getting out of his shift from the drugstore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was a huge mistake, because this was a kid who everybody knew. He wasn't a runaway and everything, but a lot of the community that he was killing in was the gay community and the runaway community. So, there was a time in America when that community, those two communities were very much on the fringe, and you hate to say it, but the police just didn't work them that hard at first. And then they realized that they had a big problem, and there were a lot of people going missing, and a lot of families coming to the police and saying, we don't know where our son is.
Right.
And then they finally started working it. But then if it weren't for that one kid that worked at that drugstore that he went after, I
mean, who knows how many more he would have done.
Who knows?
But that's the thing, because I watched a couple of these, just the conversations one. There was another one with Ted Bundy, the Ted Bundy tapes, which is the same group of people that did it.
Yeah.
They did those in such a way that was compelling. It kept moving the timeline to where he was versus his recording, and then the trials, the cases. At least they weren't so gruesome or where you felt like icky watching it. It was more fascinating. But there's just something about every single time they get caught because they get so cocky, they make mistakes that they weren't making early. And I guess it's a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But it's amazing how similar how they get caught.
Yeah. And when you understand when you go through this thing, the tightrope that the police walk to between, you have someone who's not been convicted of a crime.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, they have constitutional rights, and you've got to walk that line.
And you got to build your case.
But you got to build your case when this is your guy. I mean, this is the guy who's just murdering people. And it is a very fine line for them to walk. Yeah. And you realize how difficult their job is.
The one that you turned me on that I watched the first two, I don't know if you saw season 3 that came out, but Catching Killers, which is much more from the police perspective. Yes. They're interviewing, and you realize what a toll it takes on cops that get involved in these high profile serial killer stories where people want action. They want an answer as if you have, like you're going to solve the crime by the next commercial break, and it doesn't work that way.
Right. Well, and I've in my job been able to talk to a lot of cops, a lot of folks who work some hard crimes. And I mean, honestly, I've got a few that I just don't really like to think about and talk about that I've worked. And it takes a toll. It's like a little bit of your soul gets whittled away on some of these. Mm-hmm. And you hear that in their voices, and you see the emotion come out in those officers.
That's the part that I'm so happy that series launched on Netflix. And I'm sure other series do touch on But this one seems really about how a lot of these officers can never stop reliving that investigation.
Yeah. Yep.
That it's with them for the rest of their lives.
Well, and you heard a lot of them say, my son was this age.
Or my daughter.
I had a daughter this age. And the next time you hear somebody say, F the police, you want to just, give them a piece of your mind, if not a piece of your arm. And yes, I mean, they're, not to get into the politics of stuff, but yes, there are bad cops and there are cops that make mistakes. That happens. We're human. And there are bad cops, but there are bad other people too.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the men and women who stand between us and them, and who work to keep us safe. And most of them go out and work a hard day every day on our behalf, and you see that come through in these shows.
Yeah, I think Catching Killers was a really, and they're short. They're not. I think they're only 4 episodes each season.
Yeah, I think so, and they're about 45 minutes or an hour each.
They're very compelling, very well done. The interviews are good. Some dramatic lighting and backgrounds for the interviews, but all in all, that's another series I would highly recommend. Absolutely. If you're into the serial killer crime kind of docu-series that you can watch on your various streaming platforms.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you have any others that you would recommend in that same kind of genre? The docu-series, even if it's not serial killer, but just any documentary?
Well, one that I would really recommend is also on Netflix, and it's World War II in color. And
I was wondering about that.
That is an excellent series. I've kind of watched that on and off, but that is an excellent series. And it's interesting to see. It's not colorized. It's actual stuff that was shot in color. And it is harrowing. I mean, it really puts you in a position where you feel like you see World War II through entirely different eyes. Just the vastness of it and the violence of it. Fantastic series.
Well, since you mentioned, what did you just say? I don't know what's wrong with my brain.
World War II in color?
World War II, thank you. Since we just had the anniversary of D-Day.
Yes. I
had totally forgotten that Band of Brothers was an HBO production.
Man. Yeah.
So you know what I did starting on D-Day, the anniversary? I started rewatching Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
That is such a good series.
Oh, it is. And I always watch Saving Private Ryan on June 6th every year. But that series is phenomenal. And if you've never read the book, have you read Band of Brothers?
About Easy Company? Nope.
Yes. Oh, my gosh. You've got to read that book, particularly with your interest in history.
From what I understand, they did a really good job encapsulating the major battles that Easy Company was responsible for from the time they dropped into Normandy. And what I love about it is it goes back and shows some of their training, but it really is about D-Day from the perspective of the paratroopers behind the beaches. We always have those movies on the beaches, and I think The Longest Day had some scenes with paratroopers, but this is really about the company whose job it was to drop behind the lines and try to weaken artillery in other places that were going to be hitting the beaches.
That's right.
It's outstanding.
It is outstanding.
I totally forgot. I mean, I remember loving it. I am falling in love with that series. I'm halfway through right now because they're all about an hour each.
Yep.
So good.
It is. I think it's one of the best World War II depictions out there. And one of the things I really do love about it is it sticks very close to the book. And the book is about as historically accurate as you're going to come across. And if we push books and reading all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If you have never read Band of Brothers, I would say make that your next book on your list. It is so good.
You know, the thing that I had totally forgotten about, the number of World War II vets that they found from Easy Company, that every episode opens with interviews of these guys who were there.
Yep.
So it's not just Hollywoodizing their story. They're really capturing the thought and sentiment of the people who were there before the episode even starts.
And these are guys who, when they did these interviews, are in their 70s and 80s. And you think about it, they were like 19 and 20 when they jumped out of airplanes over Normandy.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are listening to these guys in their 70s and 80s, reliving it as if they were just there. And the mark that left for the entire life of each of those men is really amazing. And just there's no way we could possibly understand it unless we've been in a foxhole ourselves. But that series really gave me, and I've always been a history buff, but gave me a much bigger appreciation for the men in the dirt.
Oh, yeah.
Who did that.
Now, I think I always had an appreciation, and we can thank Saving Private Ryan for this series, because remember, it was Tom Hanks who became the executive producer and wanted to capture that same sort of style of filmmaking for this limited it's a 10-part series. The style, the filmic, it so holds up. It could have just been released this weekend, and I would have been like, "This is amazing! Like, how did they shoot this?"
Yeah,
they have like the sacking of one of the towns, and I don't know. They must have built a town to then purposely blow
it up. Yeah, I think that's exactly what they did.
I'm like, I'm jaw dropped rewatching it, and I had already seen it once, but I'd only seen it when it first launched. What, 22 years ago?
Which is unbelievable. Yeah. And it was Hanks and Spielberg who did Saving Private Ryan.
Well, Hanks was in Saving Private Ryan, obviously, and Spielberg directed, but Tom Hanks decided to executive produce this because he wanted to tell more of that World War II side of the story, having gone through Saving Private Ryan and meeting some of the people and understanding his part in history and trying to keep history alive. I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did.
Oh, yeah. And Tom Hanks has probably done more to give us in this generation an appreciation for what our grandparents and great-grandparents did than anybody alive.
All right. I got a couple more I want to get to very quickly. I went back and pulled up my list. I talked about a few of these. Have you seen, talk about a movie, but I didn't see it in the theater. I should have, but it came out on HBO Max. I already have bought it. Dune Part 1.
I have not. No, I still have not seen Dune.
Dear Lord, that has been the best movie that I have seen, period, this year.
Really?
I've seen it probably 6 times already since it's come out.
Wow.
And it's only Part 1. And the fact that Denis Villeneuve decided, hey, studio, you don't want to give me all the money to do the movie the way I want to do it? Well, you've given me enough movie to do the first part. I'm going to do just the first part. And if it does well, then maybe you'll give me the second part, but I'm not going to cheese it. I'm not going to just, I'm not going to do what happened the first time in the 80s when they were,
they tried
to kludge it
such
together.
A bad taste in my mouth for that world. And I think that's why I was not as enthusiastic, because that first Dune was so bad.
I will tell you, be ready for a movie that is not nonstop action, because it's Part 1. It's setting up. There's still action in it, but it's not an action movie. This is a space opera, if you will. There are so many moving parts. This is the Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones. You start realizing you've got these different families, the factions. You've got these different planets that are under control. You've got an emperor. An emperor starting to worry about one family gaining too much power over another family, but the emperor can't directly step in, so it does things behind the scenes to pit one family against the other to weaken the two strongest families, so the emperor is not all of the political behind the scenes that's happening and all underneath, you have to kind of read into it, but it's all there. Dude, blown away.
Okay.
Visually stunning.
I will definitely watch that.
The soundtrack alone, you got to either listen with headphones or have a really good surround sound setup. The sound design, I watched like 3 or 4 documentaries behind the scenes of making it. Denis Villeneuve brought all of the sound people on the set as they were filming.
Oh, wow.
Because he's like, I hate when I go into post-production and they start giving me sounds that don't sound anything like where we were just filming. And he said, we were filming in the desert. I wanted them to capture, what does sand sound like? What does the wind across the sand? Not some pre-recording. I wanted them to, and on top of that, we're creating a fantastical story. So where there's things happening in the story. There's voices that you hear. There's a history and a lineage, and then there's the I guess the sorcerers, if you will, of this age, are sort of like they come to the Bene Jesuits. They're like this holy order that's been also like the church manipulating politics behind the scenes. You start reading this, or not reading, you start watching it, and then you go back to the original book and realize George Lucas stole everything just about Star Wars, the Force, and all of this from Dune.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's crazy how much is from Dune. Including Tatooine is on a desert planet.
Right.
With a giant worm in the ground.
It's very transparent.
Dude, you just be in the mood for a very textured, very deep, but just brilliant movie. It's fantastic.
Okay. I will go back and watch that.
I can't wait for Part 2.
Because
I know they greenlit
better than they thought it was going to do.
Well, obviously, because they greenlit Part 2. Denny said, you know what, the original 3 books by Frank Herbert was meant to be just a trilogy, and then he went back and he told other stories around it.
Oh, right.
But he's hinted that if part 2 does well, he wouldn't mind making all 3 of the stories the Dune trilogy. So I'll be. That's the hard thing. Now he set himself up. Can you still maintain? Because you had to stop production, and now you're gonna have to spin it back up.
Yeah.
You know, when they did Lord of the Rings, which is my all-time favorite movie, Peter Jackson was greenlit to do all 3 films at the same time. Kept all the cast together, shot everything together, even though they released 1 year apart, and he was still shooting stuff, and he would reshoot things, and he would. But there was the continuity. Denny had to shut down his movie or shut everything down because it was done, and now he's having to spin it back up and then cast new people because there's a bunch of characters that are only in the back half of the book.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's so good. Did I say that already?
I think you may have mentioned that.
So I would highly recommend, if you're a sci-fi person, but you like again, it reminded me so much of how Game of Thrones, the complex texture of all these houses and the politics and the factions and everything underneath that's boiling. You sense it through the whole movie.
Just a lot more dense.
Very dense. This is not sci-fi candy. This is hard science fiction. It really, and I didn't know this. I went back and I've started to read the book. It really is a story of humanity, but not just 100 years from now or 500. It's tens of thousands of years where has the human mind evolved? And here's a fascinating thing about Frank Herbert. I didn't know this until I started getting back into Dune. He said that in the series, he thought that at some point humans would realize that being reliant on technology was going to end up making you dumber. And so they have outlawed any artificial intelligence and all computers. Everything is done by man because they realized the human mind was going to stop evolving when you started to rely on AI.
I don't disagree with that.
And I'm thinking, this guy thought of this in the late 60s.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
And here I am today, and I'm going, he's right. We got some dumb people in the world because the computers are doing all the thinking. Think about all the algorithms on your social media, on websites, trying to tell you what you want to buy, what pops up in your browser. And I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I didn't know how to do something. I go pull up a video.
Well, we've talked about this so many times that when we were kids, we went outside and played, and we invented our own stuff. We invented our own games. We did all that. We, played war and and now you just put on a headset and, you're in a war. So, hello, child calling me.
I don't know if you have any of those, because you said child, and made me think about where I wanted to kind of end, but anything else that you've been watching that you want to mention that we've been kind of passing the time with our since the last episode? There is just so much that we've both watched in the off season, but I've noticed that on Netflix, they had kind of shut down some of their production, and they have gone back and they're pulling a whole lot more 80s and 90s movies. Mm-hmm. So there's a long list of 80s and 90s movies that I would highly, highly recommend people check out on Netflix. And then, of course, we've already mentioned Bosch and some of those other series that are just great. So. All right, last movie I've got, because I did not go see it in the theater. I'm kind of mad I didn't, but it did hit HBO Max. Mm-hmm. The Batman.
I have not seen that yet.
You see it with
I've not seen
with Pattinson.
I haven't. That was one of those that I was like, I'm definitely going to go see it, and I just didn't have time.
Okay, because I'm totally aghast at the DC universe, like their whole attempt to try to create their Marvel version.
They're a train wreck.
Yeah, the only movie I found enjoyable that was supposed to be part of the DCEU was Wonder Woman, and then the sequel was horrible.
Absolutely horrible.
But the standalone movie, The Joker, with Joaquin Phoenix, was outstanding. I was like, why couldn't you have done that? That's what you should be doing. Well, that's what they did with The Batman. A total standalone movie, not part of the DCEU, as they're kind of calling it. Unbelievably good. And that's coming from the guy who loves the Christian Bale trilogy by Christopher Nolan.
Oh, yeah.
I will tell you that Pattinson's Batman is better than Christian Bale.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, a lot of people say, well, that's not hard because he just barked his words, and Pattinson doesn't do that. He doesn't. But Pattinson is much more the detective. He's very much, you get the sense that he's constantly analyzing the room and thinking through, what is this psychopath? In this case, it's the Riddler. what clues has he left me? It's the detective side of it is so good. And it's very much like Christopher Nolan in the sense that where Christopher Nolan tried to create a realistic Batman, like if you had money, you could see a guy become the Batman.
That's my goal.
Robert Pattinson's character very much comes from that same kind of mindset. The character, the storyline, you get the sense, okay, very much like the Nolan Batman, he could very well exist in the contemporary world, but without quite the billionaire gadgets and budget that was written in the Nolan series. So like the Batmobile is much more of a muscle car.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you,
check that out.
if you start, I just want to hear from you. Just put this in the back of your mind. In the first 5 minutes, just watch the first 5 minutes. If you're not hooked, I want to know why.
Okay.
Because before I even hit play, I'm like, this is 3 hours long.
Yeah.
What if it really sucks?
I think that's the thing that has intimidated me with it. It's just
after the first 5 minutes, I was like, this movie could let me down, but I'm all in.
Okay.
Just the way they open the movie.
Okay. And do you know where it's streaming?
HBO Max.
Okay.
At least that's where it was when it first dropped. I don't know if it was one of those things where it was
7-day trial. And
okay. Yeah. So that was the last movie I had to talk about. I just thought the Batman, and because the Batman did well, and we know the Joker did well, at the time we're recording, I had just read that they have greenlit the sequel to the Joker.
Yesterday.
They're going to tell another Joker story, which is great.
Well, changing gears real quick, the one thing I did forget to mention is Strange New Worlds.
Oh, yeah.
The Star Trek.
Oh, you said strange. It just made me think of Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, which I'm way behind. I need to watch season 3 and 4 of that.
All right, I'll save that for our next episode.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Let's do that. And I'll try to get through at least season 3.
Because they only dropped volume 1. I didn't know they were going to split up season 4 into 2 volumes. So we'll wait till next month to talk about it anyway.
Well, Strange New Worlds, it's a Star Trek thing. It's on Paramount Plus, I believe. And I watched it just saying, I'm going to watch it and pray that it's good. And I've been very impressed. I really like it. I've watched everything that's out there so far. It is, not one of these just, Picard apparently just took some really weird, bad turns. But this has been really, really surprisingly good. So really like the characters, and I like what they've done with them so far. So,
I'm wondering if they learned from like Discovery. I have some friends who are just like, oh, they did not like Discovery at all. They thought Picard felt a little slow in the first one. They thought the second series picked up a little bit, but then kind of went a little off the rails. So I'm wondering if they kind of learned their lesson.
I hope so.
Because I had heard as well, Strange New World. Well, basically, it's starting Star Trek almost over again, but with today's technology, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
In the premise of they're going out and exploring strange new worlds, which is part of the monologue of the original Star Trek.
Yes, exactly.
Which I think is kind of cool. I just can't afford another streaming service right now.
I know. I'm tapped out.
Exactly.
I'm not adding anything else, and we actually just cut one. So
actually, with what we're going through right now this year versus cold and sniffles, I am tapped out when it comes to stretching a dollar. I can't stretch it anymore.
No, not with gas continuing to climb and all the other crap going on. So no, I'm just not. And somehow, a couple years ago we went through the cut the cable stuff. So I cut the cable trying to save money.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got to subscribe to every freaking streaming service out there, and it costs twice as much. So,
well, we're not thankfully we're not twice, but we're getting close to where we were before we cut the cord.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, wait a minute. The whole point of doing this.
Yeah. And I mean, thankfully the content's good, but there's no way you can watch all the stuff that's out there on all these different services. So, and plus it's hockey playoffs. So that always takes a little bit more of my brain.
What saved us some money is I decided to cut out Fubo, which was the sports network we were streaming.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
But once college football starts, I'll have to sign up for at least 5 months.
Yeah. We use YouTube TV, and that's
we had done that the first year to get college football, and then Fubo ended up being a little bit cheaper by I think $5 a month.
Yeah.
So we just went with Fubo, but it's like $50 a month.
It's 50 something, 54 or something like that. Yeah, it's crazy. So.
All right. You mentioned your kid was calling. You and I talked about our kids when we were eating dinner before we even went live. I'm hoping this is going to drop right in time for, so let's do a shout out to all the dads. We're coming up on Father's Day.
Yes, we are.
Okay, Editing Alan back here again. Sorry to interrupt. You just heard me say that this should drop in time for Father's Day. With all of the technical issues, it took me almost a week and a half to work in the edits of this episode, along with everything else that I'm doing with my day job, with my other podcasts. And so my apologies. We missed Father's Day by about a week, but the messages still apply. So thank you for your indulgence. The reason we thought we would have it out in time is we had no idea we had a problem. But thank you so much for listening, and let's get back to the show.
Yes, we are. And this is going to be a weird one for me. This is the first time I've ever had stepkids.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be fun to kind of start some new traditions with them and have time.
You
with my
actually
kids
outpaced me because I have 4 girls thanks to my second marriage, 2 from mine and 2 from her. So, and they all were mine. I had custody, she had custody, so 4 girls. You had 3, so I was like, I have 1 more than you. Now you've got 2 new stepkids, right?
I do. I've got a son and a daughter. And so trying to figure out those waters, and
especially since they're older.
They are older, yes. And
that actually is maybe easier. Well, maybe not. I don't know where it stands for you, because mine I had to bring up from like kids.
Right. So,
which is why my wife and I, sometimes she wants to take a pillow and cover my head with it.
Right. And sometimes I welcome that. Well, I've got now a stepdaughter who is married. So I've got a step son-in-law and my stepson and his girlfriend / hopefully soon to be fiance. So we've got all that going. And so it's just you just don't fight it. You just roll with it. And my wife and I were talking about this at dinner last night, that you just kind of keep opening your heart and just keep loving. And it's just great. To me, it's a blessing, and they're great kids. So I love both of them. So it makes it very easy.
That's great. Well, the line I like to say this time of year, whenever, and I do it on social media, because I'm a big proponent that dads play a massive role in raising a child. It takes a mother and a father. And I get sometimes things happen. We're obviously products of when things go awry.
Yeah.
Your kids still need a male and a female influence in their lives.
No doubt.
There are going to be people who listen to that and go, I don't care. Every study that shows that kids who turn to violence, kids who drop out of school, kids who turn to shooting, almost all of them share in common an absentee dad.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but it's way too overwhelming to overlook as one of the key contributors to a young man not understanding his part in the world because he didn't have a male influence to help shape and guide him. So the thing I tell on social media every Father's Day, because I want it, if even just one person who is thinking about abdicating their role catches it and makes them think, then I've done my job. Any male can father a child, but it takes a man to be a dad.
That's absolutely 100% right.
And I want everyone to take that to heart. And if you're one of those people who've been maybe thinking it's been fun you got divorced, now you don't have the parental responsibilities, you're putting it all on your ex, be involved.
Yeah,
be involved. There are kids
have more parental responsibility.
Dude, and you know this. And it's so hard to explain to somebody who's maybe 25 or 30. The kids will be grown up and adults in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
I look back, I can't believe I have 4 daughters, 3 of whom have graduated college and have jobs, and 1 who is just about ready to graduate, my youngest.
Yeah.
Be a dad. Your partying days are over. You're hanging out and, I'll let the laptop or the GameCube or the flat screen or the cell phone be the entertainment and I'll do what I want. I'll watch the movies I want. I'll stay up all night. I'll keep drinking. I'm telling you, the worst thing you could do is be an absentee father, even if you're there in the house. Be involved. Get involved with sports. Pay attention. Talk to them. Read stories. This is Father's Day. Yeah, this is a day for dads, but did you earn it? Because if you haven't, maybe you should.
Well, and I can tell you, when I was a kid, I was a hockey player, and we would have practice at 5:45 and 6:45 every Saturday morning. And the one parent that I could count on being there every single time was my dad. He was always at my hockey practice. Now, he brought the newspaper, and he'd sit and read and watch practice, as he was reading the paper.
Yeah, but if you looked up in the stands, you saw him.
Every time. Yeah. And that has had an indelible mark on my life, and has heavily influenced the way that I parent, because there is no substitute for being there. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes,
right.
I mean, even when you do everything right, things go wrong. I mean,
I'm telling you, dude.
We can both bore you over a beer with that. But.
Well, just go back in seasons 3 and 4 where we started doing more of the talk show format, our listeners' lounge here. We've recounted stories. I can say this, though, because my wife and I are at that point where all of the tears, all of the turmoil, all of the arguments, the fights, are we doing this right? We've got adult kids who now want to hang out with us.
Yeah.
Now, that may seem strange to a lot of listeners. It's strange to me because I never wanted to just go hang out with my mom and dad once I was out of the house. Our kids, for whatever reason, the relationships, the time we spent with them, the mentoring, the practices, the money, they all now have gotten to a point where like, mom and dad, they really were kind of cool.
Yeah.
They may not have liked us when they were in high school. I get that. But we stayed firm. We weren't trying to be our kids' best friends. And we had to make a lot of hard decisions that we knew made them really, really angry with us. But it's because we loved them and we could see what was the greater path for them to be on. They couldn't. They're kids.
Right.
Now they're adults. They've got jobs, responsibilities. I can't tell you the number of times they've come to us and they go, how did you do it? It's just me. Like Lexi, she's got a boyfriend that, it's pretty darn serious. We're keeping fingers crossed. But she's like, it's just me, Austin, and our dog. And I feel like we can't juggle everything. You had 4 kids and you had 5, 6, 7 times 7 dogs. You just do.
I was going to say, you get up every morning and you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think they're seeing that, and they'll never see it when they're a kid. Almost, I shouldn't say never. There's going to be like that savant in the audience, like, well, my child. Okay, good for you.
Yeah.
You've got the serial killer in the family. Okay. But they're older now, and they're looking back and they're saying, wow.
Yeah.
But you know what? They wouldn't be saying wow if we weren't there making those memories and those impressions and being involved.
That's right.
You got to be involved. So to all the dads, I'm really hoping that most of you in the audience, if not all of you, have earned the title. If you've sort of slipped, there's always a chance to rebuild and get
Absolutely.
back. So any male can father a child, but it takes a man to be a dad.
Yeah. And sometimes that long walk down the dusty road to building something back is a long walk, but it's worth it and it's important.
Oh, yeah. So happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day. And happy Father's Day to my dad. He is still around, and he thinks he's a professional golfer, playing golf every day, but he is still alive and kicking. And I guess we may have to have him back as another surprise guest and talk about something else this year. But yeah, happy Father's Day to everybody.
Yeah, and mine, to the great beyond, has been gone 5 years now. But
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, Colonel Sanders. No more chicken.
Sad.
Now I'm doing all the grilling.
That's right. But he's left a great legacy. From everything I've known of your dad, he was a great dad and a great man.
Gave me a lot to live up to, and a lot of lessons I learned. And once again, it wasn't sometimes until looking back that I realized some of the things he had to do.
Yeah.
So just some of the things just to keep food on the table that I had no idea what was happening. But now that I'm an adult, I'm like, wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's going to wrap us up for our return. But as we've already hinted, next month we're going to have another episode. Our plan is at least a limited. We're doing our own limited series.
Yes,
it's if it's good enough for Netflix, it's good enough for the Wilder Ride.
The English have perfected it, and we're riding their coattails.
We're riding the yes, there we go. So we will have an episode. BK will be joining us in the month of July. We will have a more patriotic movie themed kind of discussion and show to go along with Independence Day. Happy Birthday, America next month. So we'll be doing that. And we'll continue to update on the website and Facebook. You can find us on thewilderride.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all under The Wilder Ride. What else do we normally end with? It's been a while.
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
I normally go to you for all the social media stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, find us on social media. And and by the way, on our listeners group, we do really appreciate all the people who have just remained faithful there and keep on posting stuff and keep on talking to us. So it's a fun place. So check that out, facebook.com/thewilderride.
Thank you for letting us have the extended hiatus. We're going to have some more fun this year. It'll be a little, it won't be quite every week like we did last year, but we will be in talks about how to handle 2023. As well as we look to the end of this year. But you can always go back and catch up on all the shows if you're brand new to the audience. If you missed out seasons 1 and 2, where we broke down 2 different Gene Wilder movies 1 minute at a time, Young Frankenstein season 1, Blazing Saddles season 2. and then evolved it into this talk show format in seasons 3 and 4. I had a lot of people reach out, say, all of your guests, they're evergreen. You could go listen to an astronaut anytime talk about going in space, or a FBI agent, or
a guy who's now climbed Mount Everest 5 times.
Yeah, that's crazy. We've got some really, really cool guests. And so I really want to see if we can bring some of that back. Maybe some Gene Wilder movie discussions, just a different tweak in a format.
Absolutely.
It's been fun having you back. I'll say that as we close.
It has been great. I've been looking forward to this all week. So I'm really great to be back in front of the mic.
All right. You guys find us on social media, as we said, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and reach out. We love to engage and entertain and chat, and we'll be back with another episode of the Wilder Ride Listeners Lounge.
I wish I could sing. Could sing us out.
I don't. All right, remember that pillow? I'm going to go get it.
Yes.
I'm going to go get it.
If we sing,
it'll be, if you're singing, I'll be standing over you going, one more note. Just one more. Give me one reason. I can do that so well because I've heard my wife do it.
Yes. Well, the fine art of being my pillowed.
My pillowed. I'm going to pillow him so bad. I'm going to stop just in time for him to have like some kind of a major brain issue.
We are going to get sued by my pillow, I think.